Today I want to make Brazil nut milk. I love this recipe primarily because when you become a vegan, you start to miss some of the creamy things that you had in your former life, if you were a transition vegan and haven't been a vegan your whole life. And for me, it's very satisfying to know that I have a version of something that I can use that's rich, that I can add to sauces, that I can make cream sauces with, dressings with, that I can use for soups to make soups creamy, that I can also use for sweeter recipes to make puddings and other desserts, that I can also use in tea. So I have to admit, Brazil nut milk is one of my guilty pleasures. It's one of the things that I take when I need something a little bit heavier, a little bit more substantial. Something also that I can take with me on the go to keep me going as the base of, for example, with some protein powder, hemp protein powder, germinated brown rice protein powder. It's something that really serves me when I'm performing as an athlete or when I need a high calorie food. It's something that I definitely don't consume when I'm trying to detox or when I'm trying to lower my weight or I'm trying to just cleanse. But this is a great thing to know about. It's a great thing to try. What we see in the common place are almond milk and coconut milk. It's so great nowadays. We can go to the grocery store and get coconut milk and almond milk in right next to the regular milk. So it's becoming more and more of a demand for lactose intolerant families and individuals. It's also becoming a tastier option. You can even get coconut creamer these days. Maybe almond milk creamer will come into the picture soon, because when you can slowly replace dairy in your life, for me, I know it helped me clear up my skin. I used to have systemic acne. It helped me to lose weight, and it overall has just helped me to maintain a better health and immunity. So Brazil nuts I chose just because they create an incredibly creamy milk, and one that's really tasty, and one that doesn't curdle when you add it to tea, for example, or other somewhat acidic liquids. So I really like Brazil nuts because of the texture from a culinary aspect, but I also love Brazil nuts because they're rich in selenium. And selenium is deficient in most of the soil in the country because selenium is a nutrient that's found usually in biodiverse soils. But unfortunately, because of the way we farm, today it's hard to find selenium in our soil. So even if you're eating an abundance of organic fruits and vegetables, you're probably not getting a lot of selenium. And selenium helps us age more gracefully. It's also helping us to prevent heart disease. It's lowering cholesterol or raising the LDL, lowering the HDL. So there's a lot of benefits of eating Brazil nuts because of the selenium effect, the antioxidants that are contained. But they are high in calories. The Amazonians eat these as their main calorie intake, so they do really provide a lot of nutrients. So the basic recipe is 1 cup of nuts to 3 cups of water. So here I've got about 2 cups of nuts, and these have been soaked. So I soaked them for about 12 hours just in water on the countertop overnight, and in the morning they were ready to go, so I could make my Brazil nut milk for cereal for my daughter, for example, or for my tea, which is my guilty pleasure, I'll admit. So we have 2 cups of nuts. If you want a creamier version of Brazil nut milk, you want to reduce the water. So for example, maybe 2.5 cups to 1 cup of Brazil nuts. At a certain point, it's going to be hard to extract the cream. But today I'm going to use 2 cups of Brazil nut milks. I'm just adding them to the Vitamix. Now, you don't need a fancy blender to make this. You can make this in any blender at all, as you like. So we have 2 cups of Brazil nut milks, and I'm just looking here at the measurement. I'm going to add a little extra water because they're so rich. I'm going to add 8 cups of water. But essentially for the basic recipe, you would really only need 6 cups of water. But as you'll see, after we blend it, it's going to be pretty creamy and milky. Secure the top because I've had some pretty extreme explosions in the past. And so brace yourselves. I'm going to turn this on. Blend it up just for a moment. You don't want to blend too long. And here we have our Brazil nut milk. What did that take? 30 seconds? Not even. So now we need to strain the pulp or the fiber from the milk itself. So I'm going to use a large bowl. You can really use anything. And as you see, we only have 2 ingredients, water and nuts. And I have here a nut milk bag, but you don't really even need a fancy nut milk bag. These I ordered online. Some health food stores are carrying them these days, and they just help to create a kind of filter. So as you can see, just like as if I were milking a cow, I suppose, if that were how it would be, I'm just squeezing the juice or the nectar, the milk through the bag. You know, honestly, before when I lived in Switzerland for 10 years, and nut milk bags were nowhere to be found. So I went to the grocery store and I bought a stocking, you know, from the grocery store. Maybe it was 97 cents, definitely under $1. And I just used an unused knee-high. And that worked really, really well. A women's knee-high stocking. That works equally as well, and it certainly is a lot less expensive. So you don't need a fancy blender, you don't need a fancy nut milk bag. You can just, you know, make your nut milk. And it's actually fresher and more nutritious because most of the nut milks you're buying at the store are pasteurized, which means the enzymes and the level of antioxidants and benefits from these nuts is greatly reduced. So you definitely want to try to consider making your own nut milk. Now what you're left with in this nut milk bag is actually very valuable. It doesn't have a lot of flavor. Most of the flavor's gone into the milk. But what we have here is pulp, nut milk pulp. I'm going to put some into this bag. And you can use this to make raw fruit pie crusts. You can use this to make veggie burgers. Definitely, you know, if you don't have time to use it in the next day or two, because it is perishable, you can freeze it and have it for cakes. And really the uses are endless. So you should definitely not throw away your pulp if you can take the time to find, take some time to find a use for it. So I'm just going to rinse this out and show you a little special version of Brazil nut milk. So I rinsed this out because there was still some fiber inside, and now I've got my nut milk. I'm going to just pour it back in here. And again, it's fine as it is. You don't need to do anything to it. And what I really love to add to my nut milk, for a special occasion, certainly if you're going to go to the Hippocrates Health Institute, they're going to give you the basic version of this nut milk, which is completely sufficient. But to dress it up a little bit just for fun or a special occasion or for the holiday season, if you want to make a nut nog or something to that effect, I like to add a little bit of raw, wild-crafted, sun-dried vanilla bean. And that in itself is sufficient and delicious. And then to even add another dimension of deliciousness, you could add a little bit of maple flavoring. This is something that you have to just really use a tiny little bit of. So I'm using actually 1/8 of a teaspoon, just a tiny little bit, perhaps even just a couple of drops if that's easier for you to remember. I'm just going to give this a quick whirl to combine and emulsify the ingredients. And then you have your nut milk. It's ready to go. I like to store it in a glass container in the fridge, and it should last about 4 days if your fridge is nice and cold, but it's really divine, I have to admit. Now this is definitely a sweeter version of the nut milk. If you're using it for soups or salads or cream sauces, you want to definitely not add the vanilla or maple flavoring. But this is a really special treat for the enhancement of your day-to-day life, not only in the health realm and spectrum, but more importantly also the satisfaction that we all get from food. And this definitely fulfills many of those pleasure centers that we miss from time to time. Oftentimes when we eat healthier, we think that it's going without, but actually when we eat healthier, you're providing so much support for your system. And sometimes there are emotional needs that need to be dealt with. And so oftentimes a food like this can help to nourish those needs, those emotional needs that most of us get met by food as well, something we can't always ignore when we talk about food and healthy food. So I hope you enjoy Brazil nut milk. It's a great addition to your life, your family's life, and the ones that you love. So please share this recipe, make this recipe, and if you have things that you like to add to your nut milk that I don't know about, I'd love to hear about it. Thank you.